Quinlivan took a long, slow drag from his roll-up. His feet were numb and heavy. Standing in the wet and cold for hours, waiting for Campbell to appear, was becoming both tedious and pointless. As far as his client, Mrs. T, was concerned, he was waiting patiently in his car with a state-of-the-art camera that could almost see through walls. The truth was very different. Michael Quinlivan hadn't had a car since his old Ford had spluttered its last, and as for his camera, a small outdated Nokia was his stand-in 200mm zoom lensed imposter. He stared across the small attic room at his once navy blue shirt hanging off the curtain rail in a forlorn attempt to dry. His stand-in black suit was in reasonable order. He had bought it the previous week in Bernardo's, and it looked like it would do a turn. After all, he had an important appointment later that day with Miss Hilary Cooper Clark from Kennedy Associates. He'd heard that Cooper Clark is a high flyer, doesn't suffer fools, and gets what she wants. Quinlivan stroked his 4-days-old stubble thoughtfully. Maybe this was the break he needed. No more crumbs off the table. Table? He couldn't even see the table legs. Anyway, it couldn't be any worse than standing risking pneumonia whilst waiting for a small-time scammer. 8 o'clock eventually came, and Quinlivan stepped out of a ready cab at the Glue Pot Bar to be greeted by a slicing wind coming off the foil. He pulled his black on-loan overcoat around him tightly and leaned against the bar door, trying to look carefree. But he was worried. His bank balance had tipped in the wrong direction again, and he needed some handy money fast. As he lit up his last roll-up, he wondered if he would ever get out of the attic cell that he lived in and see a bit of the real world. He shrugged and assured himself that things were on the up. But he'd told himself that before. It was becoming like the lines of a long-forgotten 60s love song that was pleasant to the ears and painful on the heart. He sniffed hard and took another long drag from his quickly disappearing roll-up. He wanted to go into the welcoming heat of the bar and order a hot Powers, but his final fiver was for another cheap meal. As he was taking his last drag and pulling his overcoat ever tighter around him, a long black murk crawled towards him. The moon shone up.
Hello? No, thank you. I would not like to sign up to Power Plus. Thank you. Bye. Oy.
What was it all about? They come here to listen to what? Who knows what really happened? Depends who's telling the story. This is where it all leads to. Plaques, pictures, and dead people. And still they come. Japanese, Yanks, Canadians, even the English. Of course, a good yarn needs a few add-ons. Makes it that bit more believable. Suppose if a tourist guide got a good reaction once, shocked faces staring back at him, why wouldn't he spice it up? I would. Good value for money.
Tea break?
Gas break, you mean?
All work and no pay?
Freedom doesn't come cheap.
What freedom?
So you're fighting for freedom?
We're fighting to survive. No choices here. Nowhere else to go.
The front line is getting closer.
History's like art. Everyone sees it differently. Not that I would know much about art anyway. Troubles, child. Not much art from fizzing gas canisters or bouncing rubbers. Still, could have been worse. At least I'm here, huh? Here. Where's that? The here and now. Always wonder where everyone else is. Gassed, past, and last. Gassed to the eyeballs, passed by good jobs and the last generation of Troubles children. Aye, long time no see. Don't recognise this place anymore. Could stand here all day and not recognise anyone. Makes you wonder, where did they all go? Can't wait for another week to see a few owl heads. Is that what it's come to? Suppose so. When the big hitters go, the small become that little bit bigger. The great are gone. We swim in a sea of mediocrity. Heaney and Friel have left Lilliput. Memorable words, phrases, poetic lines are lying lifeless and forgotten, only used to drum up results for uncaring children to analyse unfelt lines. Aye, the so-called great and good will quote a line or two, always makes them sound good, gives them the rock to stand on as they fool the fools who trudge forgotten to poll booths, flying the flags and banners of the foolish. Who cares?
A long black murk crawled towards him. The moon shone off the paintwork in appreciation. A class car. The driver dutifully got out and went to the rear of the murk and opened the door slowly. Out came a pair of smooth black-stockinged legs, attached to an even smoother figure. Her black stilettos shone brighter than the paintwork. Her figure-cut suit was dark grey and businesslike. She wore a designer-style wrap-around matching jacket and looked like a catwalk model that had just decided to go for a drink. Her hat was slightly darker and to the side, with a cluster of small shiny sequins forming a neat floral design. Her hair was light brown and shoulder-length with just the right amount of shine. Bright, red moist lips greeted him with,
Mr. Quinlivan, I assume.
The words fell from her mouth like bowing slaves to a queen. He couldn't see her face fully, but she looked both pretty and competent. Yeah, that's me, Quinlivan replied, trying to sound casual and in control.
I'm Hilary Cooper Clark.
She announced in her proper BBC accent.
You're smaller than I expected.
It was a surprise to me too, quipped Quinlivan.
Let's go inside, Mr. Quinlivan. It's a chilly night.
Quinlivan followed her through the double doors like an obedient child in awe of real authority. She smelt of thick perfume, the kind that hung around long after a woman had gone. Must be a name for that, he thought. Suddenly, his suit seemed old, his shoes tacky. He couldn't even spell confident, never mind feel it. She led him to a quiet corner and glided gracefully onto a red leather seat facing the door. Her movements were slow and deliberate. He could feel her stare analysing everything about him.
Drink, Mr. Quinlivan?
It was as if she could see into his empty pockets. Don't mind if I do. Hot whiskey would be nice. Hilary Cooper Clark raised her right hand as an eager barman arrived beside her.
A glass of sherry and a hot whiskey for my companion.
As the barman turned to go, the word companion was doing laps around his head. He'd never been a companion before. Then again, maybe she's a Mrs. Cooper Clark. Either way, she was paying.
I've been informed that you're keen to add to your small list of clients, Mr. Quinlivan.
The word small scored a direct hit and told him everything he'd feared.
Their dustbin lids would evolve into alarm calls, but they didn't know that. Long time since she'd heard the bin lids clatter and spread like an invisible metal monster clattering with each footstep. You could get a good kicking, arrested, or even shot for battering a bin lid. What about human rights? What about them? This was the birth of anarchy to the state. Not as free as they may have thought. Grand sentiments and ideals. After all, they were innocence personified. Only one cause, civil rights. But everything has a cost. Bullet holes. 1969 was like living in a dream where everything was changing by the day. There was something special about that time. A sense of history being born and proclaiming to the world that its birth was painful, but its time had come. Aye, civil rights. The European cavalry were coming anyway, not at that exact time, but they could be seen on the distant horizon by the more learned. Ha! Sassoon and Owen must have been rolling their eyes and quoting their own hymns. The well-worn lie. Dulce et decorum est, pro patria mori. Rolled out again and again, and yet people listened, joined up, and joined the dead. I remember the first soldier I ever saw being shot, lying there. He was groaning in agony with blood seeping from his back. The remainder of his foot patrol taking cover. I remember asking him if he was all right. He didn't answer, he just kept moaning. He looked about 19. I was 12. Two people too young. He didn't die. At least that's what the news said, so he probably didn't. I was glad. Then again, the news said a lot of things. I used to wonder why their counting was so bad. Where I saw thousands, they saw hundreds. Where I saw bullying, brutality, victims and abuse, they saw disorder, lawless thugs and looters. Each of us has a view on who is a hero, but a liar is a liar in any language. I remember the spot well. Barman Duffy used to sit here sketching living history, respected by the right people, gentlemen. Walker has left for good. Long time since I inhaled CS. They fired it everywhere, like confetti at a free wedding. Our daily dose of poison. They even devised a way of shooting it from their SLR rifles, and it went much further than it did from the smaller guns. Everyone had a good lungful at some stage. You couldn't even open a window or door without smarting invisible CS invading your lungs and slapping your eyes.
I was just thinking, you lot must have been getting it tight up the front with all that gas. I mean, we were getting it tight, but we were a long way back.
Tight? Hankey's not much good. They don't poison.
As for vinegar, I hate the smell of it. Me too. What else can we do? Better than nothing, I suppose.
I heard someone say you won't see the real effects for years.
Can't wait for that.
My dad's uncle reckons it can cause cancer.
Aye. Time will tell that tale. So what do you think you're really going to achieve anyway?
I just want my children to grow up equal and get proper jobs.
And be able to stay in our hometown.
I just want to be equal.
Easier said than done.
Our day'll come.
Not as simple as that.
You better believe it.
I always feel at home here. There was a bond there. Strange to have a bond with a complete stranger, somebody who'd watch your back, carry you away from harm if you were injured. But there was a sense of comradeship. I suppose I sound like a Russian now, but it's true.
These are long, lonely, forgotten times. I wish you were here. The sun is setting soon, and rapture is for tomorrow's children.
There's not a day goes by I don't sing for you. Not a single day I don't thank my lucky stars for finding me. There is no way I can explain how it feels to be sitting here today, part of something real and never ending. I will sing this rapture song. I will keep this ardor strong and this heart a happy home. There's not a day goes by I don't shed a tear for everyone that we have lost and all that we hold dear, however broke. I will sing this rapture song. I will keep this ardor strong and this heart a happy home. Two misfits on the road again. Destination somewhere round the bend. Two dreamers beneath the big red moon. It's all